Welcome to Beacon of Speech. My name's Fred Hunt, and across the table from me is Ted Coley. Say hello, Ted Coley.
Hello, Ted Coley.
Now I have to warn you ahead of time. The ducks are about 6. We're back at my house. The ducks are about 6 feet away from the window. So if you hear quacking, please ignore the quacking. Isn't that always just good advice for life in general?
I just noticed you have like a miniature picnic table.
Yeah, my in-laws got that for us. So that's very
Has that
nice.
been there all along?
Yes, it has.
And I just noticed it now.
But the ducks use that as shelter in emergencies, and they probably have little picnics with their little mallard friends that come out and visit them.
Yeah, the ducks are huge now.
Yeah, and I think the stuff we're giving them is just like fattening them up, and I think part of the problem is because...
Do you think they're getting suspicious?
Well, they might be getting suspicious, but now that they're fat, a normal person, they fatten them up, and then once they get to be about 6 months old, then you lop off their heads and you have awesome duck. Well, they're like our pet ducks, so we get the process of seeing what old ducks do. See if they, in the next couple of years, if they waddle around or if vultures just come and eat them during the day. So the ducks are always, they're an adventure every day. And I did learn that they like shitting by the door, so I don't know, or crapping by the door, excuse my French. And so I don't know if they're marking their territory or if they think that like the house is like a restroom for them.
Now, do you keep them outside all the time now?
Yes, we keep them
so
outside.
They don't come in?
No, they don't come in at all. They used to, and then they like shit on the wall, crapped on the wall. Ted, I've been so good on swearing until today. They crapped on the walls, so we had to put them outside. And then they got huge. They were literally baby ducks for like maybe 3 weeks. And now they're giant ducks that need to be eaten. But now that they're our pets, we leave them outside and they're trained. We don't even have an electronic fence because we have the pond in the ground and the kiddie pond. They don't leave the yard because this is where they get their food. This is where they get their water. And they might go into each neighbor's yard, like if they're hungry, and wander over there, but then they wander back. My wife yells at them and they come running back like a dog, and I walk by them and then they run back because they know that I'll pick them up and like get them back into the yard. I don't think they like to be picked up. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not gentle. Maybe they would like it better if like I was gentler with them, but what I didn't know is on the bottom of their feet, on their what are the things on the bottom of a duck? It's not a foot. It's a webbed foot, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, on the top, on the end of the webbed foot,
It's not a hoof.
Yeah, it's not a hoof. On the end of their foot, there's 3 nails, like a claw, and so when they struggle, they scratch you. Yeah. And I didn't know that ducks could scratch you. See, I'm learning all things. You're learning new things about ducks.
Have you gotten scratched?
Oh yeah, not bad, because it's like getting scratched by your 3-year-old. You pick up your 3-year-old and said, quit beating on your brother, and they scratch you. It's the same thing with the duck. You pick them up, and they're like, don't pick us up. So, that's another 3 minutes of your life that you won't be having back, Ted. I apologize.
And I'll just add it to the list.
So we're going to start from what we usually do. I reversed the order of my outline today, and we're going to start with Song of the Day. And we're going to start with that first and then work our way backwards to the events of the day. Does that sound all right?
That sounds good to me.
The reason I'm starting at the end of the day is the song of the day is a song called Senseless Massacre by Rings of Saturn. Okay, have you ever heard of the band Rings of Saturn before 8 minutes ago when I showed you that video?
No.
Okay, this is what I want to talk about. Rings of Saturn, the song Senseless Massacre, it is horrible. Once you listen to the song once, I don't recommend that you ever listen to it again. Would you say you would ever go out of your way to check that out again?
No.
The reason it came up is this week I'm reading through magazines online. I'm reading through Rolling Stone, Alternative Press, Spin, stuff like that. And I came across an Alternative Press magazine online, again, right? They said new genres of music. And underneath, it's called Progressive Alien Deathcore. Now, are you familiar with Progressive Alien Deathcore, Ted Coley?
That's a genre of music? That's not the name of a band?
No, that's the genre of music. Progressive Alien Deathcore.
Never heard of it. Was not aware.
Well, I had never heard of it either. I am like, what in the hell is progressive alien deathcore? And I like to think of myself as well versed. And before the year 2000, and I'm guessing again, I could be wrong, but before about the year 2012, I had never heard of progressive alien deathcore. Okay, you have never heard of progressive alien deathcore. I like to say progressive alien deathcore. Okay, now in the late 90s, there was a band called Dillinger Escape Plan. All right. Now there's
after John Dillinger.
John Dillinger. Now they did an album called Calculating Infinity, and I don't remember what year it was released, but it was around 1999. And what the Dillinger Escape Plan did, and I keep getting confused because when I was in Minnesota, there was a band called Dillinger 4. They were a punk band and they were really good. Okay, so I got to keep in my head, Dillinger Escape Plan is the band from 1999, and they released something and they created a brand new genre called mathcore. It was hardcore, but they're doing these crazy things with the 8-string guitar, which is what we're going to talk about, right? But they did not have the crazy Cookie Monster grumble. You know what I mean? They would just sing songs with hardcore songs with 8 strings, right? So they come out with this progressive alien deathcore, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to give something brand new a chance. And when I heard it, it reminded me half of this, Dillinger Escape Plan, and then it reminded me of another band, a deathcore band called Suicide Silence. And they are not very technical. They scream a lot, okay? So you merge the two of them, and you get Rings of Saturn, okay? Now, Ted is already zoning out. He's already looking back out at the ducks. Now, the reason I bring this up is we have 12 views from one of our last shows, okay?
Now, like the way that I was looking, you said I was zoning out. Yeah. Isn't that like what Joe would do when you would talk about like soccer?
Oh yeah, whenever I talk about soccer, Joe would zone out. He'd pick up the magazine and he'd be like, I'm out. And we're going to come back to Joe. Okay? So I set up, everything spins off of this band, Rings of Saturn. Okay? At your age, Ted, do you have any interest in finding anything new?
If it's good.
Right.
But I assume there's nothing good out there, so I don't look.
But when you say something good, you're looking for something rock and roll.
Yeah.
Right? Something light rock, classic rock sounding. Right? You are not looking for the extremes. You are not exploring new genres of music.
No, I'm staying in my own
backyard. You don't know if you merge metalcore and deathcore that you're going to get progressive alien deathcore. That is not your thing.
I'm not looking into the future. I'm like trying to find a time machine to go back.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that, Ted, because we're old. Me and you are. I'm old, you're old. We're on old radio technology. Okay? That song that I told you about had 1 million hits on it. Just that one song. That doesn't even include everything else. From a genre of music that I didn't even know existed before this week.
It's had 1 million hits.
Can
you tell how long it's been up there? Does it?
Oh yeah, that song that had been up there for 2 years.
1 million hits in 2 years.
1 million hits in 2 years. Now we're not getting 1 million hits in 2 years. Okay, I don't delude myself. Okay?
Have we gotten 100 hits?
No, altogether, yes. Because some of our early shows, I think people have stumbled upon Beacon of Speech, and I think our original show is now up to like 27 hits.
Yeah.
So, but we're not close to 1 million hits. My daughter, she does her and her friend, they do their own little page, right? And it's called Crashing Skies with a K. They have more hits than me and you do, okay? Does that make you feel any better?
When did they start?
They started like a month ago.
So they started after us, and they already have more hits.
They already have more hits. But in their defense, their friends from school listen. Our friends from work, let's put it this way. our old boss, who will remain nameless because I don't want to say his name in the thing, but he's fat and he's like a Santa Claus with no beard, right? If I gave him $100, I put $100 in his hand, and I said, "Go home and listen to Beacon of Speech," he'd be like, "What do you think he would do?"
I don't have time for that.
I think he would say, "I don't have time for that, but because, I've known you guys for a long time, I'll take your $100 and I will go home and listen to it." And then he will go home and then he will pleasure himself. He would not listen to it at all and take our money. Would you say that's fair?
Probably.
Okay. Now, so when I'm talking about this band, I'm still stunned that 1 million people watch it. And me and you are two of the things. So it's from a genre we never heard of. It's a song we never heard of. It's something we're never going to listen to again. We're not even familiar with it from the news. But there's 1 million people, and again...
Yeah, not to interrupt, but I was just thinking, it's in the end, it's probably a good thing that he doesn't listen.
Well, yeah, we can circle around the back.
Because I might be looking for a bus driving job, too.
But and that's where we're going. Is just because we don't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And just because it's not good doesn't mean that other people don't think it is good. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wanted to start off with there. And I'm like, I'm just stunned. Okay? And I want everybody to go out and not buy Rings of Saturn. I want you to go out and know that exists in the world and it's popular with people.
Yeah.
Almost like a warning sign. Okay? Now, I like music as much as the next guy.
There's warning signs everywhere.
There's warning signs at the end is here. And that is one of them. And listen, Ted.
This world, it's like Thelma and Louise.
I am not some fuddy-duddy. This week I was listening to Gwar, okay? And I was listening to Scumdogs of the Universe, right? I'm listening to Scumdogs of the Universe from the 90s, right? And I could sing along with every obscene lyric. Okay? But it's like they took Scumdogs of the Universe and they sped it up and they made it harder and they made it more offensive with an 8-string guitar. Ted, I made you listen to the end of that song, right? The guy is playing the 8-string guitar on his lap, one of the most technical... He's doing stuff that would spin Jimmy Page's head around.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
He is just going crazy on that 8-string guitar for the last 30 seconds of the song. Technically, he is doing some of the hardest stuff I've ever seen the guy do. So you got the vocalist doing like physically hard things to do with his voice. The guitarist is doing hard things that is hard to do with an 8-string guitar. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, granted it's hard, but you're not making it like appeasing. Granted you can do it, but what do you get out of making this offensive music? Like, just technically we could do it.
You said it's hard, but you're not making it, do you mean appealing or?
Yeah, appealing. Okay. Like, you can do it, but I'm not getting any joy out of listening to it.
Yeah.
Like our show.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter how hard something is to do. If it's not appealing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm listening to Gwar, Scumdogs of the Universe, and even when I was listening to it, I'm like, I understand that people don't like Gwar. I like Gwar. But I want to know who the people are who are listening to Rings of Saturn. Ted's nodding his head.
No, that's just like, some of the old rock and roll, like in the 50s.
Right.
It's like a lot of it was very simple, but it was also good.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. You can go back to Elvis. People are like, oh, Elvis is horrible. We like big band. What's Elvis doing? All the young people liked Elvis, right? And even when I was a kid, and this is one of the articles I want to write later this week. When I was a kid, I remember loving metal, and rap was brand new. And they put rap and metal together, and they did a song called I Am the Man by Anthrax, right? I'm like, this is genius. They put rap and metal together. And all these old people are like, you can't put rap and metal together. Right? But there has to be like an end game. You know what I mean? Like, who's the person who said you can't put deathcore and mathcore together? And in Rings of Saturn, it's like, oh yes, you can do it. What young people are listening to that? What's the end game? You know what I mean? It's like music has almost evolved itself into the ground. You know, maybe this is the end where, you know, Rings of Saturn is the end, and then music commits suicide.
I'm just picturing, when you say that, I'm picturing like the Challenger.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just...
Yeah, it's going to go, boom, music's done. There's nothing new. And now we're just, now everything is pop. It's just a rehash of pop, you know, from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Now we're just going to repackage it and, you know, clean it up. And now everything is now, that's what they call music.
I just wonder if, like, if I was a teenager now, if I would like that. Right. You know what I mean? I wonder if you just naturally like what you grew up with.
Right.
And it's like, I really don't think so, but you never know.
And that's what I wonder about myself, because in the past, you know, I read about this new stuff. It was around 2007, there was a band called The Shining, and they were out of Sweden, and they said they mixed black metal and jazz. I'm like, I gotta listen to that, you know, because I like The Shining, right? And I was in my 40s, and I'm like, I like what The Shining's doing. They're evolving. They're taking the chocolate and peanut butter, and they're making Reese's cups, right? But that's why when I heard Rings of Saturn, I'm like, have I hit an age where I don't enjoy new frontiers, or has music come to a point where there are no new frontiers? Like, there's nothing else new to learn. You know, the table of elements, we'll use that in science, right? They're still discovering elements. They're out to element 131, 132, and you can't even pronounce their names because they're long Latin names, right? But natural elements on Earth, there's 92 of them. Past element 92, there's no more elements. You can't find anymore.
That's how many there are? 92?
Yeah, there's 92 found in nature, and then past 92 is all radioactive elements that you can either make in a lab or smash in the Big Bang.
If I would have taken chemistry, I would have known that, but I never took that.
Well, I'm trying to help my wife. She wants to take chemistry in the fall. So I'm like, is that the end of the evolution of music? You see what I'm saying? Because I like to think that I have an open mind. Maybe I don't. Because, like I said, you know, some people get old and their minds close. And I know you weren't listening to Guar.
I think everybody thinks that they have an open mind.
Right.
But most people probably don't.
And see, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe this is the mark, and I'm writing it down on a piece of paper. Maybe this is the mark where my mind closed. Fred had a good run. His mind closed later than Ted's. And I'm picking on you because we're going to go back to your band, okay?
Oh, yeah, my mind probably closed like in 1989.
Yeah, and so we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine, okay, because we moved forward. Now we're going to spin around and move back. Now, Wasted Space, you said, was basically between 1999 and 2000. Is that correct?
Yes. It started, I believe, in February of 99.
Right.
I think it was like February 6th or something.
Okay.
And my last day in Wasted Space was New Year's Eve of 99.
Okay.
So it was, December 31st.
So basically you were in the band for a year.
Yeah.
And
then they continued as a three-piece until probably like August of 2000 or something like that. 6 months or so after I left.
And your band, right? When they started, the leader was Stan. Is that correct? Stan was the leader? Stan C.
Well, see, what happened was Stan was already in a band.
Right.
Another band. And he worked with Tim, right, the lead guitarist.
Okay, Tim guitar, okay.
And I would say that Tim was pretty much the leader.
Okay. And then who's the drummer?
Scott.
Okay. And we're not going to throw anybody under the bus because I don't know any of these guys, right? So they needed a lead singer, and you guys were basically singing cover tunes. You did very few original songs. Correct?
Yeah, we did do originals, but like just a handful.
Right. But the songs that were originals were written by Stan. Is that correct?
No, the songs that were originals were mainly written by Tim.
Okay. So Tim was writing the originals. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so you guys played in local bars around Cleveland, right? Cleveland, Ohio.
Only like three different bars.
So, but you never left the Cleveland area. You never went to Toledo. You never went to Youngstown. What was the bar that, like, if Tim was here, was like your home bar?
Well, I would say that basically we played about 3 or 4 times at each bar.
Okay.
So there wasn't really like a home base.
Okay.
But one of the bars was called the Floodwater.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on Canal in Valley View.
Okay.
It was right by Quaker Steak.
Yeah.
Like right. I believe it is not there anymore.
Okay.
I think they like hit it with the wrecking ball while we were playing. It was like Bosom Buddies. Remember that show?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the beginning where they're sleeping and
they're sleeping. The wrecking ball comes. They need somewhere to sleep, and the next thing you know, they're women in
that obviously that didn't happen, but they knocked it down. Like it wasn't too long after we played there. Okay, that was one of the places. Another place was in Strongsville, and I believe it was called Our Place.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because when I was driving out here,
there's an Our Place.
There's an Our Place, and like I said, I'm not 100% sure that that's what it was called, but I think it was Our Place. It was in a shopping center on Pearl, close to 82.
Okay.
I don't even know if that's still there. And the third place was in Hudson, and I can't remember the name of it.
Did they tear that place down too?
It wouldn't surprise me, but it was a pretty nice place though. So they might have like fumigated it or just.
Well, there's not that many. No offense, but there's not that many rat holes in Hudson, right? So I made a whole list because, like I said, I wanna put things down. So here's some more of my questions. We're doing an interview with Ted. Ted Coley of Wasted Space. Off the record. Did you ever sell any place out where it was like so packed? Like you go to the Floodwater and it was like end to end.
I mean, there were times where like we played. My last gig was at the Floodwater,
right?
And it was New Year's Eve,
right?
And I'm pretty sure it was pretty packed there.
Okay.
And it wasn't a big place, so as we were playing, people started like dancing,
right?
And they were like bumping into our stuff,
right?
So that was kind of funny.
Well, what about, did you ever play to zero? Like you showed up and nobody showed up and they're like, you can cut this short.
Well, I think it was one time at the Floodwater. Once again, back in I don't think it was New Year's Eve. But when we started playing, there was literally nobody there. And we started playing and the drummer's wife walked in and I remember in the middle of a song saying hi to her as she walked in. On the microphone.
I'm sorry, I had to bring that up because right before we started, and I didn't want to take too much away from the show, but Ted was asking me about Spinal Tap. So is that your Spinal Tap moment?
Yeah, there were a lot of Spinal Tap moments.
Hello, Jenny! I know we're singing Smells Like Teen Spirit, but how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, the Floodwater. They used to call it the Flood Pants.
Now, the flood pain. Were you now? I got another question for you. Did Wasted Space come out of any other bands? Like you weren't in like a band called Warning Strip or something.
No, what happened was me and the lead guitarist. We weren't in a band, right. But for like a few years before that band, we would try to record stuff.
Right.
You know, so we were working together.
Right.
And, you know, we had known the drummer since high school. So, you know, there were a lot of starts and stops.
So you guys knew each other from which high school, though? You went to two high schools?
Maple.
Okay. So all
Maple Heights.
So at the end of the day, all four of you went to Maple Heights.
Yes.
Okay. So we could.
Well, no, wait a minute. No, Stan did not.
Stan did not. What high school did he go to?
You know, I assume he went to Brecksville.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure, because his parents, I believe, lived in Brecksville.
Okay.
So, and he was younger than us, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But myself, the lead guitarist and the drummer all went to Maple Heights.
Okay.
And I finished at Brecksville.
And then you left because they wanted to basically do new music.
Well, no, I left because I was never comfortable playing.
Being the lead singer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you a story. Me and my wife, we went to see a band called No Means No, which was one of my favorite punk bands. Okay, and you'll get a kick out of this. And the opening band for No Means No was a band called Giant Eagle, right? And I told my wife, and I said, do you think that they're singing about a giant eagle? And I'm thinking about like a big German emblem of a, eagle with his tongue sticking out. And my wife leaned over to me and she goes, no, Fred, I think they all work at the grocery store Giant Eagle. Right? She's like, I think you're reading way too much into this. Well, they weren't a great band and they were playing originals, okay? But they had their moments, right? And this is why I got to tell you, their lead singer was singing and then he would kind of tail off and then he'd walk off the stage and then he would kind of stand in the curtain, the curtain on the side of the stage, and he keeps singing. Like he was so shy that he didn't want to sing. And the other three guys are just going crazy. Bah, bah, bah. They're playing. And the lead singer's just off to the side and he's still singing, but you can't see him, but you can kind of see him peeking around the stage. Now, did you have the same problem as the guy from Giant Eagle?
No, my thing is that when you're up there, once you're up there and you start, you got so much to distract you that it wasn't really a problem once I was there.
Right.
It was leading up to that. You know what I mean? Like before, you just get
Right.
Yeah. I mean, because once you're up there and you're worrying about remembering all the words and, I didn't play guitar on all the songs, but, you had things that you had to concentrate on so you could kind of, and even, it's funny because when you're up there, you're not really seeing the audience.
Right.
I don't know if you're kind of like, you got that glazed over.
Yeah, it blurs over.
Yeah. So that really wasn't the problem. I mean, once I was up there and once you do a few songs, it wasn't that bad.
And at the time, you were working at Arcus or was it Data Guard?
Well, it was probably right around the time of the transition from Arcus to Iron Mountain.
Oh, well, we're not going to talk about that second company. We're going to stay with Arcus. So after you left, the three of them tried to go on as a threesome. And they stayed together for another year or two, right?
I don't even think it was a year.
Oh, okay.
And what they did was, I think they mainly concentrated on originals.
Right.
Like when I was in the band, we were playing mostly covers.
Right.
But
Ted, almost every band starts as a cover band. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
But that was not why I left.
Right.
It
just wasn't for you.
Right. I just had a hard time. I would get all, geared up before, and
right.
I just hated that. Even though I loved music,
right,
just going and playing in front of people was a little too much.
Now the three of them went on, and then you guys all drifted apart. There was no fights, right? There's no, we had to sit in separate parts of the stage or anything.
No, I mean, there was there was little things here and there, but nothing, just little, like, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, and,
Now, we're talking about deathcore, right? But you're basically in classic rock. That's what you grew up with. That's what you love.
Yeah.
What was your favorite song to play? Like, you loved it, the fans loved it, everything.
Well, I would say probably the song that we were most known for was Simple Man.
Okay.
By Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, No, I don't.
Simple Kind of Man.
Oh, yes. Simple Kind of Man. Okay. I was thinking of a different song. Also, hello, Alex. How are you?
Have we got food yet?
No, we haven't got food. Okay, so
another song that
32 minutes in came home. Where's food? So I told Ted right at the beginning. Me and Ted were talking. I'm like, Ted, we got to get started. He's like, well, and you look like, well, why do we got to get started? Because I knew kids were gonna come in and start asking for food. 32 minutes in.
Anything today?
Well, get a banana. Look, there's a duck right there. He's sitting by the door. Lop off his head and cook him in the thing. Duck is very good. Okay?
It's kind of greasy, isn't it, though?
Oh, yeah. Not to mention, they said ducks are smarter than chickens. These ducks are smart. So I would feel bad eating them. Until they hit my stomach, then I wouldn't feel so bad. But anyhow, back to the band. So Leonard Skinner. So
you know that song.
Simple Kind of Man.
Yeah. Also, I think another one that I think was pretty popular was "Sunshine of Your Love."
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
I love that song.
But in terms of the song that I liked playing the most, it was probably "Keep Your Hands to Yourself" by Georgia Satellites.
Georgia Satellites.
Because that was a fun song. It was just easy to sing, and just kind of a.
But if you know what classic rock is, and you're listening to the webcast, you're like, oh, well, I know the type of music you were playing. It's not a specific genre, but people get an idea. What about your least favorite?
My least favorite song was "Taking Care of Business."
Why is that?
I remember it seemed like when we were in the basement, practicing all these songs before we played out, it seems like we played that song over and over again. And that's one that the lead guitarist sang.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because you sang most of the songs, but not all.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably about, I don't know, maybe 2/3.
Okay. Now, there's a band called Skid Row. They're a hair metal band, and their lead singer is Sebastian Bach. He was known for attacking fans. I think it was on 2 separate occasions. Did anybody ever chuck anything at you, and you were like jumping out into the things, and you're punching at people, or you're Jello Biafra and the Dead Kennedys, and you're literally in the fans while you're singing? You were never in the crowd?
Well, no, probably the closest we got to that was once again at the Floodwater.
Okay.
And the Floodwater, in its infinite wisdom, where the stage wasn't really a stage, it was just like a corner of the bar.
Right.
Where we, would set up and play. Well, they had like a patio.
Okay.
And the door to the patio was right next to where the lead guitarist was playing.
Right.
So in the middle of a song, people would be walking right past him to go out the door. And he got pissed off and locked the door. And then this is all going on in the middle of a song. And I don't know if it was the owner or whatever came up in the middle of a song and said, "You can't lock that door." And he's all, throwing a tantrum. And,
so you were not the hothead in the band. So that Tim or Stan?
That would have been Tim was the hothead.
Okay. So Tim locked the door. I'm sorry. So nobody attacked fans. So...
and I remember telling Tim, I was like, can you imagine like Jimmy Page doing like the same thing? Picture him playing the Floodwater and locking the door.
Well, I remember during the movie, I did something, and Cousin Dan goes, "Would Michael Bay do that, Fred?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think Michael Bay would do that." So that's funny.
And it's kind of funny because it seems like all my memories, all the funny stories seem to come from the floodwater.
Yeah.
Because also there was another time, because it was a small place,
right?
And if you got any amount of people in there, they were bumping into each other.
Yeah, you're on top of each other.
Bumping into the band. You know what I mean? And one time this lady walked by, and I think she had a big ass.
Right.
And she knocked over like one of the lead guitarist's guitars.
Uh-huh.
And it made me think of, wasn't there like a skit on the old Saturday Night Live where they had people with a bunch of big asses?
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that. There was another time he got all pissed off. And
now, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. Okay? Another question I had, did you ever drink JD on stage? Were you ever the guy holding the JD up and say, here's to you, hot girl in the black dress in the corner and chugging the black or the JD?
No, I never really drank that much when we were playing because I wanted to be clear-headed, so I wouldn't
so you didn't drink
words
and don't forget, because you're playing classic rock and it was still the 90s, it was before the state law. Did you...
I didn't have anything against drinking. I just didn't,
do it while you were...
Yeah, because like I said, I wanted to be...
focused.
Yeah.
You were a professional. That's probably what held you guys back.
I was neurotic.
That's probably what held you guys back. You guys were not on the edge. You were too clear-headed. Yeah. Did you have a cigarette in the mic stand or anything? Or did the drummer, was he smoking Cheap Trick style while he was playing the drums?
The drummer was actually the only one who didn't smoke. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think I would smoke while I was up there, but not a lot.
Okay.
Because once again, it just got like in the way.
You were taken away from the focus.
Yeah.
And, okay. Now, even though you were lead singer, you still had a guitar.
Yes.
What type of guitar did you have?
I believe it was a Washburn.
Okay. I don't even know what that is, though.
Yeah.
Is that an acoustic guitar?
It was electric.
Okay.
I have an acoustic, but I don't think I ever played it on
stage.
Yeah.
Your Washburn, did you ever put upside down crosses on it? Or
no, it was
a death to, okay, if it's 1999, what would have been going on? Death to George Bush?
Death to Monica
Death
Lewinsky.
to Monica, death to Clinton.
Yeah.
My son's yelling different presidents in the back.
No, I was yelling America.
Oh, Death to America? Death to America. Ted, you guys were not that type of band. You guys were playing good old boy rock and roll.
Death to Lincoln.
Death to Lincoln. Now, Alex, you have Tyler's here. Where's Kevin at?
I didn't know what you were doing.
Kevin is our dog, so we gotta make sure that the dog doesn't run out.
Well, I really want to play.
Well, Alex, if you're eating, just go after.
I'm eating too.
Okay. See if that's... Go grab the dog, Alex. Go grab the dog.
Go, I'm eating. I'll come out.
See, this is the distraction of doing things at my house, so I apologize. Just like, Alex, let them know after you're done eating. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, again, this is excellent radio, waiting for the dog to stop barking. Kevin. My dog's name is Kevin. Listen.
Shut your pie hole.
Listen. Don't bark at little Tyler. He's a little kid. Be nice to him, okay? Okay?
He's an unarmed little kid.
Yeah, he's an unarmed... You can bark at the kids with guns. So, your band, by the end of 2000, the band disintegrated. Your part of the band disintegrated. To your knowledge, you guys did not spawn another band. Is that correct?
As far as I know, but like I said, I haven't had contact with those guys for a long time.
But they're your friends. They're not like your enemies.
No, not as far as you know. No, not as far as I know.
Now, the next thing is when I first met you, you talked about your nephew's band. And again, you're in your 40s, just like me. Your nephew's now in his late 20s. When he came out of college, he started a band called Ram in the Bush. They were actually a pretty good band. You played one of their first album for me. I actually liked it. A couple of the songs I put on YouTube because I liked them. Right?
Was that when they were ramming the bush? Or
Yes.
Okay.
And then they came out with the second Ram in the Bush, and I don't know what they did, but they lost their magic. I don't know if they were trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, and again, we'll use the Rings of Saturn analogy. Technically, they were better, but they had lost some. Ram in the Bush had lost some magic, and then they became a different band. What was the band Ram in the Bush became?
I think it was the Grooves.
The Grooves?
That was one of the. They might have been something else too. I know.
But then they tried to put Ram in the Bush back together, correct?
Actually, they're going to be playing in 3 different places here next weekend.
Oh, okay.
They all live in Nashville, but they're coming up here because they got like 3 different gigs.
Oh, that's great.
I think one's in Menor. That's the close one.
Right.
One's in Geneva and one's in Youngstown.
Well, are you going to go?
I might go to one of them, because I think they're Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I'm probably not going to make the one on Thursday.
Well, if you get a chance, check out Ram in the Bush because they're good.
But I don't know if that's what they're touring under. I don't know if that's the name that they're using now.
Well, now, the next question I have, your nephew, did he ever say that you inspired me, Uncle Ted?
Yeah, he actually did say that.
See?
Well, he's probably blowing smoke up my ass.
Well, but that's the thing. You never know who inspires what.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember a lot of musicians. I just read this article. Shirley Manson of Garbage, and I think this is what we were talking about. She said she was inspired by bands in Scandinavia that nobody ever heard of. Well, to her, they were a success because she liked them and she thought they were good bands. Nobody has ever heard of those bands, right? So she goes, well, were they successful? I think they were successful because they were good bands and they were good at what they did. Were they like Garbage where they sold 10 million copies? No, they really weren't because, But she goes, to me, they were successful. To you, you might not have thought they were successful. But then it comes back to the analogy of what is your definition of success? Is your success being happy? Is your definition, or is it selling 100 million records? You know what I mean? And I remember Vin Diesel, the actor,
mm-hmm.
They had interviews with people who worked with him in his early movies, and they said they always knew he was going to be successful. And they said, well, how'd you know he was going to be successful? Was it because, he worked so hard at being an actor? No, he always acted like an a-hole. And they knew that he would step on anybody for anything to get where he was going.
So people instinctively know that that's who gets to the top.
Yeah, yes, they knew that he was going to be at the top because he would do anything to get to the top.
Yeah, and they said, I think no matter who you are, you know people like that.
Yeah. And so, now that Vin Diesel's at the top, he's like, oh, I like to stay humble and I like to thank God. And I'm like, that's not what the people at the beginning were saying. The people at the beginning were not talking about humble. You did not get to be in Fast and Furious 7 by being nice and humble and, making calculate. Yeah, I'm going to. Hey, dog, come here. Come here. Listen.
What did I
see this? See this? This is a computer. We're doing a webcast. Okay? I'm going to explain it to the ducks, and they understand it better than you. Okay? Stop your barking. Yeah, my dog named Kevin.
Dog named Sue.
So, on the website, I have a blog, and I wrote.
Why is there so much red?
I don't know. I don't know if things seem to be reverberating better today than usual. I wrote an article for Beacon of Speech. Okay? So instead of doing a magazine article, I'm going to do an article that I wrote for Beacon of Speech. It is called The Top 10 Asterisks in Sports. Now, do you know what an asterisk in sports is, Ted?
No.
I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to read my own writing, and I can plagiarize because I'm plagiarizing off myself. So, A few years back, quarterback Tom Brady allegedly had some lackeys slightly deflate some footballs. You're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of morons, including NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, acted like he had stolen the crown jewels. I hate the New England Patriots. Do you hate the New England Patriots?
Yes.
Yes, we both hate them. Okay? Do you think that Tom Brady should have gotten a 4-game suspension for deflating footballs?
I'll say yes.
I will say no. Okay? Because as far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever the hell you want to the footballs. It's just like spitballs. Spitballs, whatever. Who cares? Right? Ted, it's a game. Okay? That's what you do in games. You steal a base. You try and out-clever the thing. Okay? Performance-enhancing drugs is something different. Okay? That's manipulating your body.
Now, before Deflategate,
right?
Was there a specific rule that said you cannot tamper with the...
The rule was the football had to be between 11.5 and 12.5 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rule was don't mess with the footballs, okay? Because some people liked them brand new, some of them liked them like a baseball.
Now,
some people liked them scuffed up.
Was it somebody's job, like one of the officials?
The equipment managers would take the footballs to the ref. The ref would squeeze them, right? And
he's like Mr. Whipple. Or
yeah,
whatever?
like Mr. Whipple, and they would be like, "Oh, this football, right? This football's too deflated. Fill it up." Or this thing is
just tell by squeezing it.
You squeeze it. It's either good or bad.
Like your mom checking your temperature by kissing you on the forehead or whatever.
So literally, the NFL made a mountain out of a molehill. The old procedure was, here's a water bottle. Ted, hold this water bottle. Is that half full?
It's 2/3 full.
Okay, put it down. That was the check. 1 second, right? So that's all the NFL check it. This ball's good. This ball's bad. Out you go. Ball's like a balloon, deflated a little bit. If it's too deflated, pump it up a little bit. They literally took a 1 second procedure and turned it into the grand theft of the century. Even if Tom Brady slightly deflated it, I'm not saying he did, but even if he did, who the F cares? They won 49-7. They didn't win 49-7 because he deflated the footballs. If he prefers a slightly deflated football, who cares if he prefers it at 11.5 versus 12.5?
Now, the footballs that he was using, was the other team using the same footballs?
Yes.
So they were both using deflated footballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have been suspended.
So, back to the article.
So if that's an advantage, why didn't the other team do well?
Yeah. And the whole thing was that they...
You know what it is that the Patriots just rub everybody the wrong way.
And that's exactly what it is. Okay? But some sports writers wanted to slap an asterisk on their championship. Okay? Don't know an asterisk in relation to sports records? It basically drops a giant butt on your accomplishment. Using the example above, right? In 2015, an uber Patriots hater wanted to put an asterisk after their championship. It said 2015 Super Bowl champs, asterisk, and then at the bottom it would say, but Tom Brady deflated footballs, right? It's like, really? That's what you're going with. And don't forget, he went on to win Super Bowls with no deflated footballs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And going back to the baseball analogy, when people are throwing a spitball, the other team wasn't using the same balls with the balls of spit or scuffed. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's an imperfect example. And that's why the NFL has too much time in their hands. And that's why they're the no fun league. Okay? So, top 10 asterisks in sports. Number 10. Babe Ruth had 60 home runs in a year. Right?
Yeah.
In 1961, Roger Maris broke that record. In the Major League Baseball record books, it said Roger Maris 61 with an asterisk.
Because it was 162 games instead of 154.
So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So they dropped an asterisk on him. And then Hank Aaron, he eventually broke Babe Ruth's career home run record. And then when Babe Ruth broke the home run record, you know what happened?
When Babe Ruth?
When Barry Bonds broke Hank Aaron's record.
What was there, an asterisk because of...
People wanted him to have an asterisk, and I'm going to read the exact quote. Aaron himself called for an asterisk for PED users. Now, he did not call for an asterisk for Barry Bonds because, that would, he wasn't putting down
because
somebody
he didn't have proof that...
He didn't have proof, but he just said in a general statement, if you use performance-enhancing drugs, you should get an asterisk. Well, I don't see what the problem is. If somebody used steroids and shot themselves up, you know what I mean? I think that differentiates than just deflating a football, right?
Yeah,
so
what did he end up with? 73 home runs?
73 home runs. And so he not only got the season home run record, but he got the career home run record. And he cheated his ass off. Okay, because...
Well, wasn't he another guy that, nobody liked?
Oh, nobody liked him. And the whole thing is that if people would have liked him, they might have looked the other way. Yeah. But if he wasn't such an a-hole like Vin Diesel, you know what I mean? It's the whole thing. And what's the old saying? Be nice to people on your way up because that's who you're going to see on the way back down. Number 9 for top asterisks in sport. Now, I didn't put an asterisk on them. The Major League Baseball did that, right? Number 9, in 1980, do you remember the 1980 Olympics?
Yes. Are you talking about the summer?
No, the one in Moscow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the Summer Olympics in Moscow.
The one that, 60 countries boycotted?
Yeah. Did you realize that the Soviet Union broke the record for most medals won in Olympics in that Olympics?
In the summer part, right?
Yeah.
Because, nobody was there to compete against them.
Nobody was there to compete against them. So guess what? They get asterisks. The 1984 Olympics, the Americans, they got the most medals they had ever won in an Olympics.
And is that the one that the Soviet Union boycotted?
That's the one the Soviet Union boycotted.
And why did they boycott?
Well, that's
because we boycotted the 80 Olympics?
Yes. But this is how hypocritical everybody is. Why did America boycott the Moscow Olympics?
Because of the Soviet Union invading Afghanistan?
Yeah. Now
that was the reason?
Yeah. Ted, as I'm talking to you right now.
Is that why? Because there were a bunch of other countries that boycotted too. Was it for the same reason?
But America led the boycott, yes.
All because of Afghanistan.
Yes. Now, as me and you were talking on July 17th, 2016, what foreign troops are in Afghanistan?
American?
Yeah. How long have we been there?
15 years.
Don't you think there's some irony? So the asterisks get to both Olympics. I never realized that the Americans won the most amount of medals they ever won when the Russians didn't go.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Now, were there... The Soviet Union boycotted in 84. Were there any other countries that boycotted in 84?
Eastern Bloc countries. Yeah. East Germany, Poland, blah, blah, blah. Right? But again, people are like, Americans are holier than thou. Well, yeah, probably because of crap like that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, they literally got 60 countries to boycott the Moscow Olympics because they were in Afghanistan. I'm sure somebody would be like, oh, no, when we went to Afghanistan, it was different than when the Russians went to Afghanistan. It was totally different. Number 8, the strikes-shortened NBA season of 1999. In 1999, the San Antonio Spurs won the NBA championship. Now, why would there be an asterisk?
See, now that's one that I'm not really familiar with. I really wasn't paying attention to the NBA.
There was a strike. Yeah, because you were busy with wasted space.
That's a good reason.
San Antonio won the championship, right?
Now, was that 98, 99,
yes,
or was it 99,
I believe
2000?
It was 98, 99.
Okay.
They won the championship, but it was only a 50-game season because of the strike. The NBA player strike.
You must be right about that because I think 2000, 2001, and 2002 were the Lakers.
Or Lakers, yeah. Yeah, Lakers. Lakers. They got asterisks not because of me and not because any NBA player did.
How much was it shortened?
It went from 82 games to 50 games.
Oh, wow.
But Phil Jackson, you know who Phil Jackson is?
Yeah.
He said that, well, San Antonio had a soft schedule, so they were able to build up their schedule because a lot of teams didn't play their hard games because the 32 games were taken out. So Phil Jackson said, if anything, the San Antonio Spurs should get an asterisk for their championship.
Because I know that the Bulls, had their run, and I know they won in '98.
Right. And then
were they close in '99 too?
Well, that's when everything broke apart.
Yeah.
Right?
Jordan was still with them in '99, though, right?
I think that's when he retired for the second time, and then he came back to the Washington
Wizards
/ Bullets. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now, that's totally a jerk move by Phil Jackson, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
You don't slap an asterisk on somebody else's championships, right? And I'm going to read again from my article. Don't feel bad for the Spurs, because the Spurs, they learned how to win that year. They learned how to win in '99. They won the championship in full seasons of 2003, 2005, 2007, 2014, right? And they still have this...
You know what's funny? Like the year that the Dolphins had their undefeated season. 17-0, 14-0 during the regular season.
Yep.
That was one of the arguments. Oh, they had a soft schedule.
They had a soft schedule.
Okay, fine, but you still beat 17 teams.
Yeah.
And you didn't play the same team 17 times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's more than half the teams.
Yeah, you can't control the schedule. They make the schedule a year ahead of time. Because I heard that too. I heard when I was doing the article where they were like, oh, well, when they went 17-0, only 2 of their wins before the season ended were against teams with over 500 records. But you can't control that. It's the same thing with the San Antonio Spurs.
In the playoffs, they played 3 teams with an over 500 record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they beat all 3 of them.
Yeah. And so that's why the whole thing of an asterisk is a huge kick in the ass. Phil Jackson should have known better. Now,
you know what it kind of reminds me of?
What's
it
that?
Reminds me of the Stop Trump movement.
Yeah.
It's like the guy, he got the delegates. It's like, and now people are like, yeah, but, 40% of the people didn't. It's like, here we go.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why have the primaries then?
Yeah.
If you're just going to try and get whoever you want.
Yeah. If you want to run, go run the Green Party or go run the... Trump won. Whether you like it, I don't like it, okay? But whether you like it or not, he won fair and square.
Right.
He didn't, he's not in Iraq. He didn't pull ballot boxes or anything. He won fair and square. But what I wanted to say was Tim Duncan, part of the reason this got posted this week, Tim Duncan retired. Greg Popovich is still with the team. That team, that 1999 San Antonio team, they deserved what they earned it. And for Phil Jackson to say that, he's just a big...
Did Tim Duncan just retire?
Yeah, this week.
How old is he?
He's 40.
Wow.
And that was his first championship, was 99. That's why it's amazing, 17 years later.
That's a long time.
And it just shows what a class act Tim Duncan was, what a class act Greg Popovich was, and what a-hole Phil Jackson was. Because Phil Jackson, right, he went on and he won all those championships with the Lakers, right? He was dating the GM, Jeannie Buss, right? But he was such an a-hole. Is he coaching the Lakers now?
Who, Phil Jackson?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And when was the last time he coached the Lakers? What, 2010, 2011? You know why? Because he was a giant a-hole / drama queen like Vin Diesel. And again, he can be smug at 70 and slap asterisks. But, on the way up, he was a big a-hole. I'm glad you won your championships, and, everybody knows...
I'm glad you won your championships, a-hole.
Yeah, exactly. But again, that's a real jerk move to put an asterisk on someone else's championship. Now, talking about greedy Americans, World War number 7 was World War II in America. Okay, English Premier League in World War II. What did they do when the Germans started bombing the hell out of London?
The English Premier League?
Yeah, in England.
They ran away.
No, that was probably the French Premier League. The English Premier League shut down. They said we're at war, right? Well, the Americans now. Back in the day, there was no real NBA. There's no real precursor to NBA, right? But Major League Baseball kept playing. They said, well, go to war. Go knock yourselves out. Alex, please go grab the dog.
Oh my God,
Just grab him by the collar and move him so he's not barking in the webcast. So, but the NFL, they kept playing. The Major League Baseball, they kept playing, right? Major League Baseball crowned the champion every year, right? But Bob Feller, one of the best pitchers in Cleveland Indians history, went off to war. Do you think the Indians would have won more championships if they had Bob Feller pitching in the early 40s?
Yeah.
But then you could turn around and say, well, Yogi Berra, he went off to war. They would have won more championships if Yogi Berra wasn't in the war. You see what I'm saying? Ted Williams was in the war. Joe DiMaggio was in the war. Well, who won the championships those years if those guys were all in the war? Jackie Robinson, but then you could turn around and say, well, at the time, Jackie Robinson was in the Negro Leagues, right? Well, he wasn't in Major League, so was it? Well, you know what? The greedy owners should have shut down during the war, okay? Because you're getting old guys and people who couldn't even enlist in the war. So champions in the NFL and Major League Baseball all get asterisks by me for World War II. Because it's like, they're like, well, we can't shut down, and it's like, well, why can't you shut down Major League Baseball? And they're like, well, we need to make money. Well, maybe you should be doing something for the war effort. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Well, we're entertaining people. Who are you entertaining? All the people who like baseball are fighting the war. Because at the time, the NFL wasn't that popular. There was only 10 teams. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers nowadays is a model franchise, right?
Now, not to interrupt, but what would it have been? The Olympics in 44, that the Olympics didn't happen.
That in 40 and 44 both
40
got canceled.
And 44.
40 and 44 got canceled too. But in 36 was the great Jesse Owens Olympics, where Hitler was there, but he didn't want to admit that Jesse Owens did great. But yeah, so they shut down the Olympics in 40 and 44 too. So the people who are playing sports are the Americans. We're at war and we're playing sports.
Yeah, we're oblivious.
The NFL only fielded 10 teams, but they only had about 10 teams. They were a very struggling, they're a struggling league. The NFL
Isn't that when we were good?
Yeah, I think
when
so.
There was like 2 other teams.
Well, that's the thing. The Steelers, who are now a model franchise, Dan Rooney, isn't that the old Rooney on the Steelers?
Art Rooney?
Art Rooney, I'm sorry. Art Rooney, when he's in his 20s, he's like, oh, well, I don't have enough players, so I'm going to merge. So in 1943, the Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles actually merged because they didn't have enough players. They didn't disband. They were called the Steagles. Steelers, Eagles.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in 1943, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, Philadelphia Eagles.
And it was just temporary because of the war?
For 1 year because of the war. And then in 1944, the Chicago Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Steelers merged because they didn't want to close shop. They wanted to keep playing. They didn't have enough players. They're like, we're going to keep playing. Now, what does that sound like? It's 1944, and they wanted to keep playing. They didn't want to shut the doors. All of our best players are in the European theater. All of our best players are in the Pacific theater. We're going to keep playing. Which leads us to number 6. What am I going to say? Gets an asterisk.
I don't know.
The 1987 NFL season. What happened in 1987, Ted, a huge NFL fan?
Well, that was the there was a strike that year.
There is a strike that year.
And it was at the scab.
It was the scab year. After the second week, the NFL players said, "We're gonna strike, and screw you guys. What are you guys gonna do?"
And there was a strike in '82.
There's
also.
but they stopped playing. In '87, they said, "Listen, we do not need you." Remember what happened back in World War II? Our best players went, and we kept playing. You guys are being outlandish. You know what Ted, back in the 80s, they wanted like $500,000 to play football. Isn't that outlandish, looking back at it? And they wanted something called free agency. Oh, my Lord. Right? So, in 1987, after 2 weeks, the players had the hammer. They said, "We are going to strike." And the owner said, "We do not need you. There's the door. Have a nice life." Right? Is that correct? So far, I'm right.
Yeah. I was just... Because I do remember that, but how many games were played with scabs?
That's where we're going. And again, it's in the article that I wrote, so I can cite it all I want, right? They played 3 games with replacement players. So they canceled week 3. They grabbed a whole bunch of players from the USFL because the USFL had just folded like the year before. And they grabbed a bunch of players from the CFL. And the reason being, well, you don't really want to play for the CFL anyhow because most of the CFL is littered with old, college players, right? So they all came over and they played 3 games with replacement players.
It was only 3 games?
3 games. So they canceled one, and then so it was a 15-game season with 3 of the games with replacement players. Well, some teams, none of their players crossed the picket lines. Some teams, 9, 10 players crossed the picket lines. Well, who do you think was winning all those games?
The players who crossed.
The players who crossed. I think they said 1 in 5. I don't have it in front of me because I didn't put that part in the article, but I think it was 1 in 5 players crossed the picket lines. And they're like, "Listen, I would rather get paid."
Do you remember if we had a lot of people who crossed? Or
I remember Bernie Kosar saying that they did not have a lot of players who crossed. I don't know it. I'd have to look it up. But he said he was getting together with the other players and going over plays and doing stuff behind the scenes that they weren't supposed to be doing. But 1 in 5 crossed, right? And those 1 in 5 said, "Listen, I'm not going to work at McDonald's. I want my $500,000 a year paycheck or $100,000 a year paycheck. I know that I may never get paid more than this in my entire life. I'm crossing the picket line." So, which caused even more damage, right? So the whole thing was, okay, the defending champ, New York Giants, they went 0-3 during the replacement players, right? That was enough to knock them out of the playoffs, okay? So it costed them a chance to defend the title, so that whole 1987 season gets an asterisk. You say that's fair?
Yeah, that was...
Because the owners literally thought they could get people off the street, and because...
That was the year of the fumble.
Right. And because the Browns could just put any players in there and people will just keep coming. They said the TV ratings went, dropped through the ground. The attendance went way down. But how arrogant do you have to be to say we don't need you? And again, they ain't close up shop. They were like, "Well, you're going to come back. You're going to play under our rules, and we're not going to, now you could say I'm maybe too pro-union on it. But again, looking back on it, how can the owners say that we're just going to keep playing football? Ted's shaking his head.
No, like I said, I
because
was aware. I don't really remember that well, but I do remember that there was a strike in '82 and '87.
Because I remember there was a strike and there was a lot of violence around the stadiums, and I'm like, and I was on the owner side for this part. None of those people who were doing the violence, none of those NFL players were, like, say, the plumbers union went on strike. None of those NFL players were going to go help out the plumbers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was totally a one-way street. But, you identify with your favorite football team, right? So you want to support them. Well, of course, in Philadelphia, there's all kinds of violence, because all the union people are like, we're with the Eagles. Well, guess what? The Eagles ain't with you. You know what I mean? So, but that was number 6. Number 5 that got an asterisk was the 2005 college basketball season. That's the year that they created one and done in college basketball and basically crushed the game. So everybody gets an asterisk from 2005 on. Because did you ever like college basketball?
No.
No. But you're familiar with the NBA, and you know that the one and done killed college basketball. They don't have to go to college if they want to. They go for a couple of months and then, just go. Well,
are you talking about being able to go into the NBA draft?
Yeah, going to the NBA. You know what?
One and done, what does that mean, 1 year? Or
yeah, they have to go to college for 1 year.
Okay.
That's the rule. So the rule, basically...
Now, is that what Kyrie Irving did?
Yes.
Okay.
He played 10 games for Duke, and then he broke his toe or he had an injured toe. And then he's like, well, I declare. Literally, right away. So he played 10 games at Duke because that was the rule. So he basically... What education did he get? You know what I mean? I don't even think he went back for the second semester.
And you said that started in 2005?
That started in 2005.
Okay, now what about Kobe Bryant?
He came straight out of high school. But what was happening is all these uber talented kids, like Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, they were coming out of high school and going straight into the NBA. Well, the NBA said, well, listen, these kids aren't ready for the NBA. You have to go to college. But they didn't make it like the NFL where you got to go for 3 years. They said you just go for 1 year and learn about life and then come to the NBA, right? So that rule, basically, it helped the NBA a little bit, but it ruined college basketball. Because people like LeBron, who are once-in-a-generation talents, Kobe Bryant, those guys, they were ready for the NBA. Well, because there's so much money involved, these other dumb kids were coming out, and they're like, we just want to go straight to the NBA. Well, they're like, well, they're not ready. Well, guess what? Then don't draft them.
Yeah.
Why make a rule that ruins college? If you don't... Now, LeBron James, you could tell he was once in generation, right? Yeah. But these other dumb kids, well, if they're not ready, then don't draft them. There's no rule that says you have to draft them. Why did you have to create a rule that ruined college basketball? So, because they ruined college basketball gets an asterisk from 2005 on. 2004, you might have heard of this, Tad Coley. O.J. Simpson, Hall of Famer.
I was just watching something on him today.
Did you know O.J. Simpson's still in the Rock and Roll Hall of... Or not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Is still in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Did he play at the Floodwater?
O.J. Simpson's still in the Hall of Fame. Why is he still in the Hall of Fame, Ted Coley?
Because he was good.
Yes. Why did they not take him out of the Hall of Fame?
Why did they not take him out?
Yes. Why did they not take him out of the college or the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, all he did was murder people. I mean, that doesn't take away from his skill on the field.
You are mostly correct. Okay? Now, I'm in the article that I wrote, I reminded people who O.J. Simpson was.
Are you going to let one incident
tarnish? You're going to let one incident tarnish all those running yards? But seriously, what is the Hall of Fame's justification for not taking him out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
I'm going to read it straight from the thing. Okay? There is no mechanism to take people out of the hall once they're voted in. Well, take them out.
Yeah.
No, there's no...
So you can't come up with one?
No, Ted. Ted, you don't understand.
You don't understand how busy we are.
When he went into the Hall of Fame, right, there was no mechanism to take him out. And they when they explain it to you, they're explaining it to you like you're explaining to a 5-year-old child why they don't get dessert. Because you were bad. You know what I mean? They're like, what you don't understand is there's no mechanism. Yeah, I understand there's no mechanism, but he killed somebody. Listen, I don't think you were listening. There's no mechanism to take it out. They couldn't slap an asterisk on O.J. Simpson that says...
Killer.
Yeah, killer. It's the simplest thing in the whole world to do. And they couldn't do it. And that comes back into our world of everything.
You see like you're reading like an NFL history book, and they have like O.J. Simpson breaking a record, and there's an asterisk next to it, and you look at the bottom of the page, and it just says killer next to it.
Well, that's the whole thing. Because I was so stunned when I'm reading this, because I had heard this before. You know, none of this O.J. Simpson stuff is new, right? About 10 minutes.
He was never convicted. That's why.
He was convicted my wife threw in. He was convicted by a civil court. He was held liable for $34 million.
Okay.
But, so, O.J. Simpson, if you go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame website, right, it doesn't say anything except for he ran for the Buffalo Bills and the other, other teams they ran. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who else he ran for beside the Bills.
Do you think that's OJ coming up the driveway now?
Yeah, OJ's coming up the driveway, and he's coming to sort things out with me. He's like, they are not taking me out of the Hall of Fame, you bastard. But so I'm looking at it. I'm on the Pro Football Hall of Fame website. I'm reading all his accomplishments, literally pages of them. There's nothing about Trial of the Century, nothing about the murders, nothing about anything. Well, the Hall of Fame would turn around and say, well, we don't have anything about the Naked Gun movies either. Right? Their defense is, and still to this day, there's no mechanism to take him out. I'm like, you can't slap an asterisk. There's no, you know what? It just goes back to the litigious society. Well, are they afraid that OJ's going to sue them if they slap an asterisk on them?
Yeah, it's just really funny that you brought that up because like I said, just before I came over, I was watching that 30 for 30.
Yeah, because, and that's something else I put in there. There's the 30 for 30 about O.J. Simpson. There's 2 miniseries about O.J. Simpson just this year. And people cannot get enough O.J. Simpson. And maybe that's the Pro Football Hall of Fame's new defense. Is, well, people know what O.J. did. They can go somewhere else to get that information. We're just here to talk about football. Yeah.
We're not here to judge.
Yeah, we're not here to judge. We're just here to talk about how he ran over people on the football field, not how he did it. So that's number 4. OJ gets an asterisk because he killed people, allegedly, right? Yeah. Number 3, the Tour de France. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a trick question.
Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong. And I'm going to ask you a trick question. In the year 2003, Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France. He cheated his ass off. And he said, I did not cheat my ass off. And then I got to look at the year, blah, blah, blah. In the year 2013, they stripped Lance Armstrong of all his titles, right? So, or did I say 2003? 2013. In 2013, he was stripped of all his titles. So, go back in time. Who won the 2003 Tour de France if Lance Armstrong got stripped?
I have no idea.
Now, number 1, name 2 bicyclists besides Lance Armstrong.
I can't name one.
If you would have asked me before this, I would have said Greg LeMond. So I know Greg LeMond. So I can't name 2 bicyclists. Okay? Lance Armstrong cheated. They didn't put asterisks on him. They took him out of the record book. It is actually blank for the year 2003. Who won the Tour de France? So who came in second and is the new winner?
I don't know.
Well, he cheated. He is out of the record books too. Okay.
Oh, that's the guy who came in second?
Yeah.
That's nice.
What about the guy who came in third? He's the new first place winner, right? No, he doped. 8 of the top 10 people who finished in in 2003 were all not rumored to be dopers. 8 of the top 10 were suspended for doping in their careers.
You know, of all the sports that you would be taking drugs to be better at,
yeah,
bicycling wouldn't be the first one that
no,
pops
it wouldn't even be in the top 10. Football, hockey, baseball, soccer, tennis, golf, all these big money sports, right? Cycling, you get down to maybe number 9 or 10, right?
Do you think that dart player that we worked with, do you think he was on any...
He probably was doping. I'm going to say his name. We used to work with Gary Mawson, the dart player. He was one of the best dart players in the world.
Throwing a dart through a wall.
Yeah, and he was a super nice guy. And if you get a chance, buy whatever Gary Mawson's endorsing right now, go ahead and buy it. But Gary Mawson's telling me about, oh yeah, dart's going to be on ESPN too. I'm like, Gary, dart's not a sport. Fred Hunt, darts is totally a sport. Why are you being a jerk to me for? And darting is as much of a sport as a spelling bee that's on ESPN. I'm like, that's not a sport either. He goes, it's as much of a sport as golf. That's not a sport either. Gary Mawson, you are not helping your case. Gary Mawson was one of the greatest dart players in the history of darts. So top 100 for sure. Okay? And he was a nice guy, and I liked him. Yeah. But don't tell me that he was a sport. That's like being the greatest bocce ball player in the history of the world. Who the F cares? It's not a sport.
Whenever I think of darts, I think of like thumb wrestling.
Yeah, that's like me and you thumb wrestling, and we start the thumb wrestling champion. Fred Hunt was the greatest thumb wrestler in history. Well, too bad. You don't get crap for crap about that. But
he was in the thumb wrestling championship.
I was in the me and you would be working. Gary Mawson, what you doing this weekend? I'm going to the Japan Open. They're giving me appearance fee for darts. And don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge Gary Mawson because he made a living at it. He left Iron Mountain. He was a professional dart player. Just don't tell me it's a sport. But anyhow, back to 2003 with Lance Armstrong, right? 8 of the 10 top finishers were all convicted of doping in their career. So what do? I even wrote down the guy's name. Where was it? Carlos...
It almost sounds like a premise for a comedy movie.
Yeah. Carlos Sastre. I don't even know his name because I don't know bicyclists. He came in 9th. Well, does he become the new champion? At that point, if everybody's cheating, he was the best of all the cheaters. So instead of taking his record out of the record books, just put him back in the record books and put asterisks on it and said, of all the cheaters, he was the best cheater. I mean, how hard is it to do? They're like, we're gonna take him out of the record books. Yeah, but literally everybody cheated. And baseball is going to have the same problem in the next couple of years. Jose Canseco said everybody cheated. Okay? That's why he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
During that period, right? You don't think it's really occurring now.
No, because they have testing.
Yeah.
But Jose Canseco said that all of those Oakland A's, okay, he said McGuire was doing it. Oh. He was doing it. Now, I didn't say this. Allegedly, Jose Canseco hinted that somebody in the Hall of Fame from the Oakland Athletics is already who's already in the Hall of Fame did performance-enhancing drugs, right? But he wasn't going to out him. Well, there's only 1 or 2 people it could have been, right? And again, this is allegedly. This is not me, but what is he trying to say that Ricky Henderson did it?
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? Now, again, that's not me talking. That's Jose Canseco. He said somebody from that athletics team is already in the Hall of Fame when I was doing it, but I'm not going to out him because he's already in the Hall of Fame. There's not that many players on those A's teams that it can be.
Well, Ricky Henderson was on the A's, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And Mark McGuire, right?
No, Mark McGuire's not in.
Oh, he's not in.
No. But the Baseball Hall of Fame...
Well, who else from that team is in the Hall of Fame?
Off the top of my head, I don't think anybody. Unless it's, who's the pitcher? Dave Stewart? Is he in the Hall of Fame? He was a really good pitcher.
Yeah, he was really good. I don't know if he's in there, but I know he was really good.
But again, I'm not casting aspersions. I'm telling you what Jose Canseco said. So it goes back to now the Baseball Hall of Fame is going to have a problem. Do you put in Jose Canseco? Do you put in Mark McGwire? Do you put in Roger Clemens? Or do you say, well, they use PEDs, they're banned? Or do you say, well, everybody was using PEDs? Or do you put an asterisk on them? You see what I'm saying? And that's why when they stricken Lance Armstrong from the record, I'm going to actually stick up for him. If everybody was cheating, he wasn't the only cheater. And do you know how they caught Lance Armstrong? Just a question for you. For 10 years, he said, I didn't do it. Do you know how they caught him?
No.
In the year 2006, Floyd Landis, they caught him using the PEDs, right?
Who's Floyd Landis?
He won the Tour de France after Lance Armstrong, and he was one of Lance Armstrong's teammates. And they said, under oath, if you lie under oath, you're in perjury and you're going to jail, right? We caught you on your drug test taking performance-enhancing drugs. Who did you take the drugs with? How did you get them? And were the other members of your team on them? Well, he couldn't lie. And because it's, again, court record, he said Lance Armstrong was doing them. You know, he used to be on my team, and we were all doing them.
Couldn't he plead the fifth?
Well, that's the thing. That was in the year 2006. For 7 more years, Lance Armstrong was like, Floyd Landis is a liar. He's dragging my name through the mud. You guys don't have any positive samples. Everything he went back to, there are no positive samples. There are no positive samples. There are no positive samples.
Couldn't he have just pulled a Robert Plant and said, I don't remember?
Well, he should have. But finally, he admitted it once they went back with the new testing technique and got one of his old samples. And then they're like, you're under, perjury, and if you lie, you're going to jail. And he's like, I might have cheated. But that was 7 years. We're shrinking 7 years into 7 seconds. But again, if every single person was cheating, well, that's your fault. You know what I mean?
It is kind of funny that they're having trials over that. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. So there's only 2 left. We're going to zip through. And then we'll be done for the day. Number 2 for asterisks. The East German national team. When you were a kid, did you ever hear any jokes about East German athletes?
Yeah, I think so. Women who were really guys. Or, yeah.
1964, behind the Iron Curtain. The East Germans are like, we found these awesome, and I know the descendants of the Nazis, you're going to find this hard to believe, but they said, we found you can take these steroids and make people stronger, faster, better. Stronger, faster, better, right? In 1964, they started giving kids as young as 13-year-olds steroids. They see a kid, he's the fastest swimmer in his class naturally.
This was in East Germany?
In East Germany. They take him out of swim class. They said, we want to put this guy in the swim academy. At 14 years old, they're giving him steroids. Now he's the fastest swimmer in the whole world, right? Well, sometimes there'd be side effects, sometimes...
He's like a dolphin.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like dolphins, right? The East Germans, this happened from 1964 to 1988, okay? It was not... So all East Germans, they all lose because they cheated. Not one person. It was systematic.
Yeah.
From the president down, just give these kids these steroids and we'll win all these medals, right? Now, how many athletes do you think this affected? Just ballpark. If this went on for 24 years and Olympic elite athletes.
How many did it affect?
Yeah, how many people did the East German national team give steroids to? How many athletes?
A lot.
10,000. Well, Tyler's back at the door. 1 second, let me cover the mic. One second. Ted, talk about East German athletes. Give me 1 second.
Fred is going to
Hey, Tyler?
the door.
Give Alex 5 more minutes. He finished dinner.
One of Alex's friends
So 5
is
more
knocking
minutes,
at the
okay?
door. So
I really want to go play so bad.
Okay, well, give him 5 more minutes and then come back.
Fred is back.
So for 24 years, they would identify these athletes, give them steroids, and then they would either go to the Olympics or they'd wash out. Because again, these academies are feeding these kids steroids like they were vitamins, but telling the parents that they were feeding them vitamins. They weren't telling them they were feeding them steroids. And then, mom and dad, they send little Jenny off to camp at 13, and she comes back at 17, and she looks like a boy. They're like, we must have had a bad gene in the gene pool. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So number 2 is East German athletes. All East German, and they don't even deserve it, but the whole federation was doing it, top to bottom. They said some of these kids didn't even know they were taking steroids. They were just like, we'll make you breakfast and take these pills when you eat breakfast. That's how rampant it was in the East German society. I shouldn't say society. It wasn't in their society. It was in their academies. Now, number 1 is going to be very controversial, and it'll end our show. Number 1 is
for all time? Or?
All-time asterisks.
No, I mean, it'll end our show for all time.
Well, hopefully it doesn't end our show for all time. College football champions. Every team before the year 2014, from 1874 to 2014, every champion gets an asterisk. Why is that?
Wait a minute. Say that again?
In college football, every champion between 1874 and 2014 gets an asterisk. 140 years of champions. Why do they all get asterisks?
Is this college football?
College football.
I have no idea.
There's no championship game. In the year.
Because of the bowl system?
Yeah, everything was bowl system. In 1874, there were 9 football teams. 1874, not 19. 1874, there were 9 football teams. Both Yale and Princeton went undefeated. They went out and said, we're the champions. Even though they were both in the Ivy League, and they both could have played each other, they both just said, season over, we're the champions.
Where's Princeton? Is it New Jersey? Or
I think it's New Jersey. 1901, there's 45 football teams. This tradition goes back as old as time. There's 45 football teams in college football. The first bowl game was played in 1901. I said 1801. 1901. It is between Michigan and Stanford, right? Michigan won 49-0. Who's the champion of college football in 1901?
Michigan?
Harvard. Okay? Now, Harvard's argument was, we're not playing in the bowl games. Our season is over. Michigan's argument was, we played in the championship game. We're the champions. So they said, okay, co-champions. So in 1902, did they come up with a playoff?
No.
No. Every year they played this little game. Harvard didn't want to fly across the country to play. They didn't want to play each other. Tradition is old as time. Sometime in the history of football, you think somebody would stand up and say, why don't you guys play each other on the field? The whole time you've been alive, have you heard arguments about who's the best football team in college football?
Yes.
It seems like every other year, right? I'm going to give you another example. 1921, there were 100 football teams in college football. How many champions are listed as NCAA champions? 1921. How many champions were there out of 100 teams?
How many champions?
Yeah.
10?
6. 6 champions. None of them wanted to play each other. Nobody wanted to make a playoff. Now, somehow they can make playoffs in Division II, Division III, basketball, hockey. As old as time, we can have playoffs. But in football, we can't do it. Right? Now, in 1921, most historians agree that Cal's claim was probably the best, right? Why was their claim the best? They tied in the Rose Bowl 0-0.
When you say Cal, is that USC?
Yeah. No. Cal, like Northern Cal. You know, USC, UCLA, it's down south, and then Cal's up in San Francisco. The Cal Bears, Cal Golden Bears. So, their excuse for the history of college football has been, that's the way it's always been. And then as the years go on...
There's no mechanism for...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Ted, that's exactly right. There is no mechanism to have a playoff. Well, make a playoff. Well, but the bowl people don't want a playoff. Well, then make a playoff. So, all right, we got somebody back up at the door. I'm Fred Hunt. Across the table from me is Ted Coley. This was Beacon to Speech number 30. And just remember, just because there's not a mechanism somewhere doesn't mean you can't put a mechanism somewhere. Do you have anything to add?
Any last request? No, I don't have anything. Other than
I'll be right back.
one last invitation to Donald Trump.
Oh, crap. Donald Trump. The Republican convention's this week. Donald Trump, this is your last chance.